Welcome back to the deep dive. I'm really excited about this one today. We are going to be looking at a topic that, honestly, I think a lot of people fantasize about, especially when they're stuck in traffic on a Monday morning.
Oh, absolutely. The dream of just walking away from it all.
Right. We are diving deep into the FIRE movement. That stands for Financial Independence, Retire Early. And the mission of today's deep dive is to basically synthesize a massive stack of sources we've pulled together. I mean, we've got retirement calculators, tax strategy guides, psychological studies, and even some pretty sobering 2026 inflation reports.
Yeah, the data we're looking at really covers the whole spectrum. It's not just the math, but the actual mindset behind FIRE.
Exactly. We're going to decode all of that and specifically contrast two very different paths, which are lean FIRE and fat FIRE, to help you, the listener, figure out which financial independence lifestyle actually fits your reality, because it's not a one-size-fits-all thing. Okay, let's unpack this. Where do we even begin?
Well, I think we have to start by acknowledging that the goal here isn't just accumulating a giant pile of wealth like Scrooge McDuck. It's about figuring out how to successfully apply these concepts to buy back your time. It's a completely different paradigm.
It really is. Usually when we talk about retirement, there's this underlying assumption of a fixed timeline. It feels like standing on a moving walkway at the airport, you know?
Yeah.
You just step onto it somewhere around age 25, you hold onto the handrail of a 401k, and eventually, at age 65, it gently drops you off at a golf course.
It's a predetermined destination.
Right.
Society has basically already mapped out the distance and the speed for you.
Yeah. But when you step into the world of the FIRE movement, that moving walkway is just suddenly ripped right out from under you. You're looking at a financial landscape where the destination, the speed, the vehicle, it's entirely up to you.
And that level of freedom requires a massive shift in mindset before you even look at a single spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Because you are no longer saving to hit a specific age, you're saving to hit a specific mathematical threshold.
Which brings up the big question, why? Why would anyone put themselves through the intense discipline required to hit that threshold early?
To understand that, we really have to look at the psychology of what we call enough.
Yes, this part is so interesting. Looking at our sources, there's this 2010 study by economists Daniel Kahneman and Angus Deaton, and it gets right to the core of what drives this whole movement.
It does, and what they found is that the ultimate luxury people are chasing isn't like a yacht or a massive mansion with a 10-car garage.
No, the luxury they actually want is just to stop worrying.
Exactly. The research perfectly illustrates that happiness basically plateaus once your basic needs are met and a strong sense of security is established.
Right. Having millions of additional dollars beyond that point doesn't exponentially increase your day-to-day emotional well-being.
It really doesn't. What people truly crave is the absolute certainty that an unexpected car repair or a sudden medical bill won't ruin them. They just want to be able to walk through a grocery store and fill their cart without, constantly doing a running tally in their head.
Which makes total sense.
Right.
I mean, if you're listening to this right now, that kind of peace of mind is probably exactly what you want. But how do you mathematically guarantee it?
That's a big question.
Yeah, like if the goal is never having to worry about money again, how do you know when you've actually bought your freedom?
That brings us to the foundational math of the FIRE movement. It's called the 25X rule.
The 25X rule. Okay, break that down for us.
It's an incredibly elegant formula. To find your FI number, which is the exact portfolio size you need to theoretically sustain yourself indefinitely without working, you simply calculate your annual living expenses and multiply them by 25.
I love thinking about that target number as your financial escape velocity. It's like the precise amount of fuel you need in the tank to break free from the gravitational pull of a 9-to-5 job.
That's a great way to put it.
But hold on, where does that specific multiplier come from? Like, why 25? Why not 20 or 30?
So the 25X multiplier is actually the mathematical inverse of the 4% safe withdrawal rate.
Okay, the famous 4% rule.
Right. This goes back to a financial planner named William Bengen and the landmark Trinity study from the 1990s. The researchers looked at decades of historical market data and found that if you hold a broadly diversified portfolio of stocks and bonds, you could historically withdraw 4% of its value in your first year of retirement.
And then adjust for inflation after that.
Exactly. You adjust that withdrawal amount for inflation every subsequent year, and the portfolio would almost certainly not run out of money over a 30-year period. And since 4% goes into 100% exactly 25 times, multiplying your expenses by 25 gives you the nest egg required to safely withdraw that 4%.
Wait, I have to push back a little here. We are basing our entire financial escape velocity on a rule established from market data in the 1990s.
It's a fair point.
I mean, does a historical study based on a 30-year traditional retirement still hold up for someone trying to retire at age 40 today? That's a much longer time horizon.
That is a critical question, and we will absolutely address the modern adjustments to that 4% rule later on. But what's fascinating here is that the true genius of the 25x rule, regardless of slight tweaks we might make to the assumption later, is the paradigm shift it forces.
How so?
Because your retirement target is no longer driven by your income. It is driven entirely by your expenses.
That is huge, because traditional financial advice usually tells you to aim to replace like 80% of your pre-retirement salary.
Exactly, which assumes your lifestyle costs will remain tethered to whatever you earned. The FIRE math completely ignores what you earn when setting the finish line. It only cares about what you spend.
So by decoupling a target from your income, reducing your annual spending becomes the single most powerful lever you have.
Yep. For context, under the 25x rule, every $100 a month you cut from your budget permanently reduces your required FI number by $30,000.
Yeah. Let me just repeat that. Every $100 a month you cut permanently reduces the target by $30,000. Think about what that actually means for a second.
It's pretty staggering.
If you sit down and manage to cut $10,000 a year from your spending, maybe you downsize your house, or you commit to driving a reliable used car instead of leasing a new one, you just slashed your required retirement nest egg by $250,000.
A clean 250 grand just gone from your target. And that reality, the fact that expenses dictate the size of the target, is what essentially splits the FIRE movement into different camps.
Right, because your lifestyle choices define your math. Here's where it gets really interesting. If we look at the extreme ends of the spectrum, you have two vastly different paths. You've got lean FIRE and fat FIRE.
Two totally different mindsets.
So how does lean FIRE actually play out in reality?
Lean FIRE is the path of extreme frugality. It's about compressing your living expenses down to the absolute minimum to lower the target and cross the finish line as quickly as possible.
Okay, give me an example of the math on that.
So imagine a household willing to live comfortably, but very minimally, on $30,000 a year. Multiply that by 25, and their target FI number is just $750,000.
Which honestly, compared to the millions that traditional advisors tell you to save, sounds incredibly achievable.
Very achievable, and people hit it fast. They often reach that $750K by maintaining aggressive savings rates of up to 75% of their income.
75%.
Yeah. They keep their housing costs negligible, they rarely eat out, and they prioritize time freedom over material comfort.
It's like driving across the country with exactly enough gas in the tank to reach the destination, and you remove the spare tire just to reduce weight. You're traveling incredibly light, and your goal is purely speed. You get there fast, but if you hit a pothole,
you are stranded. That is the inherent fragility of lean FIRE. Because the budget is so intensely compressed, you're basically trading post-retirement safety for speed.
Right, there's no wiggle room.
Exactly. If every single dollar of that $30,000 budget is strictly allocated to basic necessities like groceries, utilities, and essential healthcare, there's no discretionary spending left. So if the stock market takes a 20% dive, you have no quote-unquote fun budget to temporarily cut back on to preserve your portfolio.
You're just operating right at the absolute edge of your math.
Precisely. You're living on the razor's edge.
Okay, so flip the script. What about the people who absolutely refuse to compromise on lifestyle?
That is fat FIRE. This is comfortable, upper middle class living without the paycheck. This is the household that wants to spend $120,000 a year in retirement.
So they want the international vacations, the nice dinners, the lack of budgeting anxiety.
Exactly. But when you multiply $120,000 by 25, your target jumps to $3 million.
Yeah, that is a massive lift. You can't just clip coupons and ride a bicycle to a $3 million portfolio in 10 years on an average salary.
No, you definitely cannot. Fat FIRE generally demands a sustained, high-earning career. It takes significantly longer to achieve, and you have to aggressively invest huge sums of money.
But the upside is the safety.
Exactly. Unlike lean FIRE, it comes with a massive built-in shock absorber. If the market tanks, a fat FIRE household simply skips their month-long trip to Italy and holds off on a kitchen renovation.
Right.
They can easily slice $30,000 off their spending for a year without ever touching their basic quality of life.
So if you're listening to this, it really forces an honest assessment of your own household. Are you someone who values absolute freedom right now and can happily live a minimalist lifestyle to get it? Or do you require comfort and a massive safety net, even if it means working an extra decade in a high-stress job to guarantee it?
And making that choice accurately is more critical now than ever, especially when we factor in the modern economic landscape.
Oh, yeah. The 2026 economic reality check from our sources.
Right. That no spare tire vulnerability of lean fire becomes genuinely concerning when we look ahead to the late 2026 economic projections.
Right. Imagine staring at your retirement spreadsheet, knowing that inflation is projected to remain elevated at 2.8% going into late 2026.
Which is significant.
It is. That's higher than the historical averages we enjoyed over the last decade, and it actively destroys your purchasing power. If I'm trying to live on $30,000 a year and groceries suddenly cost 15% more, the math just starts breaking down.
This is exactly why researchers like economist Karsten Jesk are raising red flags about using the original 4% rule for early retirees.
Because 30 years isn't enough time.
Exactly. If you're retiring at age 40, you aren't planning for a 30-year traditional retirement. You're planning for a portfolio that needs to survive 50 or 60 years. Jeske argues that factoring in longer time horizons and elevated inflation means the 4% rule is just too aggressive.
So what does he recommend?
He advocates for a much more conservative withdrawal rate, somewhere between 3.25% and 3.5%.
Which completely changes the math. If you're only safely withdrawing 3.5%, you can't just multiply your expenses by 25 anymore. To find your target, you have to multiply your expenses by roughly 29.
Yep. Your $30,000 lean fire budget just went from a $750,000 target to an $870,000 target overnight.
Ouch.
And general inflation isn't even the biggest threat. We have to discuss the healthcare trap.
The healthcare trap is terrifying in the U.S.
In the United States, early retirees lose access to employer-sponsored subsidized health insurance, exposing them entirely to the open marketplace.
And the numbers in our sources are just brutal. A 35-year-old who retires at age 50 could face an estimated $380,000 in health care costs just to bridge the gap between age 50 and age 65 when Medicare finally kicks in.
Because medical inflation rises significantly faster than the general consumer price index, that $380,000 isn't discretionary. It's a mandatory cost that most early retirement calculators grossly underestimate.
I have to stop and ask, though, if you're constantly looking over your shoulder at 2026 inflation rates, factoring in a $380K healthcare gap, and watching market volatility to see if your 3.5% withdrawal rate is holding up, doesn't that defeat the entire psychological purpose of FIRE?
It's a valid point.
Like, we started this by saying the goal was peace of mind. If I am sweating over a spreadsheet every time I buy eggs at age 45, I haven't bought freedom. I've just replaced a micromanager boss with a micromanager calculator.
That is a very real phenomenon, and it's why avoiding unforced errors is so crucial. You can't control inflation, but you can control your exposure to catastrophic, preventable risks. For example, financial planners stress closing what they call the protection gap.
You mean like life insurance?
Specifically term life insurance. Many people pursuing FIRE become so hyper-focused on accumulating assets that they completely ignore disaster planning.
I see.
If a severe illness or the sudden loss of a spouse occurs, you might be forced to liquidate your investments during a market downturn just to survive. A solid term life insurance policy provides a lump sum of cash to a surviving family, ensuring the investment portfolio remains untouched and has time to recover.
That makes a lot of sense. But what about out-earning that 2.8% inflation? If holding cash is just guaranteed depreciation, how do you invest without turning into a stressed-out day trader?
The sources point to strategies outlined by Nicholas Berube in his book From Zero to Millionaire. He argues that the solution isn't complex stock picking or attempting to time the market.
Which usually fails anyway.
Right. It's buying broad, low-cost index ETFs that capture the growth of the entire global market and simply leaving them alone.
He actually says it should take less than an hour a year to manage, right?
Yes. The mechanics of it are incredibly passive. By capturing the total market return, you historically outpace inflation by a wide margin without having to actively monitor financial news.
But let's say even with ETF growth, the math for lean fire in the U.S. just isn't penciling out because of that $380,000 healthcare gap. There's another massive lever people pull, right? Geographic arbitrage.
Moving to a drastically lower cost area to essentially force your dollars to stretch further.
Exactly. You build your $750,000 lean fire portfolio in US dollars, but instead of trying to survive in New York or California, you move to Portugal, Mexico, or Thailand, or even just relocating to a tax-free US state like Texas.
Which completely changes the burn rate.
Yeah. Your portfolio might feel dangerously tight in a high-cost area, but it provides a genuinely comfortable upper-middle-class lifestyle in Colombia.
It artificially isolates your budget from local inflation. However, if uprooting your life and leaving your support network isn't appealing, and Fat Fire's decade-long grind is too daunting, there are incredibly practical middle ground strategies.
This is where I think the average person listening can really find a realistic path. If full lean is too risky and full fat takes too long, we pivot to Coast Fire and Barista Fire.
What is crucial to understand about Coast Fire and Barista Fire is that they don't change the size of your final target. They are purely timing strategies.
Let's walk through Coast Fire because the math feels almost like a magic trick.
It really does.
Let's say you decide you want a traditional retirement age of 62 and you want a comfortable $1.5 million portfolio. If you grind in your 20s and save aggressively, hitting $375,000 in your investment accounts by age 32, you are done.
Done saving, to be clear.
Right. You stop contributing completely. Because of the power of compound interest, assuming average historical market returns, the $375,000 will double and double again over the next 30 years.
Yep.
It will organically grow into $1.5 million by the time you're 62, without you ever having to add another dime to it.
So from age 32 onward, you still have a job, but your income requirements plummet. You only need to earn exactly enough to cover your current day-to-day living costs.
Which brings us to Barista Fire. It's a similar concept. You build up a substantial portfolio, but it's not quite big enough to fully sustain you yet. So you quit the soul-crushing corporate job and take a low-stress part-time job like serving coffee, hence the name.
Right.
You earn just enough income to reduce the withdrawal burden on your investments.
And crucially, that part-time job often provides health benefits. By securing employer-sponsored healthcare, you completely neutralize that massive $380,000 healthcare trap.
Okay, I have to play devil's advocate here for a second.
Go for it.
If you are doing Coast Fire or Barista Fire, you're still working. You're setting alarms and reporting to a manager until you're in your 60s. Isn't that basically just giving up on the retire early part of Fire?
It might seem that way on the surface, but if we connect this to the bigger picture, it fundamentally redefines the actual goal. The objective shifts from freedom from working to freedom from saving. For many professionals, the deep anxiety they feel isn't caused by the work itself. It's the pressure that they must hold on to a specific high-stress, high-paying job just to fund their 401k and secure their future.
I see.
The moment you hit your Coast Fire number, that underlying financial terror just evaporates. You have already bought your future. Now, you can afford to take a significant pay cut to work in a nonprofit or try a totally different lower-paying career that actually fulfills you.
That is a brilliant mental shift. But let's say you bypass the middle ground. You go hard, you achieve full financial independence, and at age 40, you have your $1.5 million sitting in your accounts. You are ready to walk away completely.
Okay.
Suddenly, you hit a massive logistical wall, the locked vault access problem.
Right, because having the money on paper doesn't mean you can easily spend it. You run headfirst into the IRS pre-59.5 penalty trap.
It's like winning the lottery, but all the cash is locked inside a thick glass vault on a 20-year countdown timer. If your money is tied up in tax-advantaged accounts like a traditional 401k or a traditional IRA, the IRS heavily penalizes you for touching it before age 59 and a half.
Yeah, usually that's a 10% penalty right off the top, plus regular income taxes.
So if you retire at 40, how on earth do you access your money without losing a fortune to the IRS?
This is where FIRE transitions from basic math into tactical tax planning. You can't just have the right number. You must have the right account structure. There are specific mechanisms designed to bypass these penalties legally.
How does that actually work? Because paying a 10% penalty on millions of dollars would destroy the whole plan.
One of the most common mechanisms is the Roth IRA conversion ladder. It requires a 5-year lead time, so you really have to plan ahead. Basically, you systematically convert a specific portion of money from your pre-tax traditional IRA into an after-tax Roth IRA every single year.
And you have to pay the regular income tax on whatever amount you convert in that specific year.
Right. Correct. But here's the mechanism that makes it work. The IRS rules state that once money has been converted to a Roth IRA, you must wait 5 years.
5 years from the conversion date.
Exactly. After that 5-year holding period, you are allowed to withdraw that converted principal amount completely penalty-free at any age. By converting a year's worth of expenses annually, you build a rolling ladder.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so by year 6, you have access to the money you converted in year 1, tax and penalty-free.
That is incredibly clever. What if someone didn't plan 5 years in advance, though, but they were suddenly ready to retire at 55?
Then they would use the rule of 55. This is an IRS provision that allows you to withdraw funds from your current employer's 401k without the 10% penalty, provided you leave that specific job in or after the year you turn 55.
Got it.
The key mechanical detail here is that it only applies to the 401k tied to the job you just left, not your older IRAs.
Okay, but what if you're way younger? What if you're 45 and you didn't set up the Roth ladder?
Then you execute a 72T substantially equal periodic payments plan, or SEP. This is an IRS rule that allows penalty-free withdrawals from IRAs at any age.
How do you trigger it?
You commit to taking a mathematically fixed series of payments based on IRS life expectancy tables. You essentially amortize your portfolio over your expected lifespan.
There's a catch, I assume.
A big one. Once you start a 72-2, you cannot alter the payment amount, and you must take those distributions for at least 5 years or until you reach age 59 and a half, whichever is longer. If you deviate from the formula by even $1, the IRS retroactively applies the 10% penalty to everything.
Wow. So you are trading flexibility for access, and even if you avoid the early withdrawal penalties using those methods, you still have to navigate standard taxes. The sources from Fidelity really highlighted how complex withdrawal strategies can get.
Fidelity illustrates that the order in which you pull money from your accounts dictates your lifetime tax bill. Traditional advice usually says, spend down your regular taxable brokerage accounts first, then drain your tax-deferred traditional IRAs, and leave your tax-free Roth accounts for last so they can grow.
Right. Kick the tax can down the road.
But Fidelity's modeling shows that a proportional withdrawal strategy is often superior. By withdrawing a carefully calculated mixture from all 3 account types every year, you can artificially manipulate your taxable income.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, you keep yourself in the lowest possible tax brackets for decades, smoothing out the tax hit rather than facing massive tax spikes later in life.
And managing those specific brackets is vital, particularly with capital gains. This is the difference between keeping your money and giving it to the government. Fidelity laid out a scenario comparing 2 people in 2026, Jamie and David.
Let's look at the mechanics of why their taxes differ so wildly. Jamie has managed her withdrawals so that her ordinary income for the year is only $28,150. Okay.
She also sells some stock from her brokerage account, generating $5,000 in long-term capital gains. Because the IRS tax code taxes long-term capital gains based on your total income threshold, and Jamie's total income remains low, she falls into the 0% capital gains bracket.
No way.
Yep. She legally pays $0 in taxes on that $5,000 profit.
0. That is the magic of the tax code. But then look at David.
Right. So David pulls more from his traditional account. So his ordinary income is $66,150. He also realizes $5,000 in long-term capital gains from selling the exact same stock.
But his income is higher.
Exactly. Because his higher ordinary income pushes him over the threshold, the IRS taxes his capital gains at 15%. He owes $750 on a stock sale that Jamie paid nothing on, which perfectly illustrates that hoarding the cash and hitting your FI number is really only the first half of the journey. If you pull the money out haphazardly, without understanding the mechanisms of the tax code, you're going to bleed out your financial freedom in unnecessary taxes.
It requires a fully integrated strategy. You have to balance the mathematical targets, the lifestyle compromises, and the tax implications simultaneously.
So what does this all mean? If you're listening to this right now and thinking about your own timeline, the ultimate takeaway isn't just about whether you choose the extreme frugality of lean fire or the long grind of fat fire.
Right.
It is a deeply personal, brutally honest assessment of your own lifestyle compressibility. You have to decide if you are willing to trade material comfort to buy back your time right now, or if you prefer the safety and luxury of a massive cushion, even if it means staying on the moving walkway a little longer.
It all comes down to deciding which specific set of trade-offs allows you to sleep peacefully at night. And I'll leave you with one final thought to consider, something that the spreadsheets and calculators can never really prepare you for.
What's that?
If you do everything right, if you nail the math, bypass the penalties, and successfully step off that moving walkway at age 40, you will suddenly find yourself living a life completely out of sync with everyone else you know. Your peers, your friends, and your family will all still be locked into their 9-to-5 routines.
That's a huge point.
So if you magically hit your FI number tomorrow and never had to work for money again, what would you actually do on Tuesday morning? Because often the true value of financial independence isn't escaping work. It's buying the freedom to discover the work you would gladly do for free. The ultimate challenge of early retirement might not be the math at all. It might be figuring out who you actually are when your entire identity is no longer tied to a job.